All right, today you guys get to start adding your value. Make sure that you, again, are using a ballpoint pen. So it is the pen that is labeled art in your folder that I gave you at the beginning of the school year. Okay, so when we talked last class, we did a value scale and we went from black to white. So I'm going to make sure that I am starting with my layers. So for the neck, and the neck's not going to be black, so I'm going to draw my line and then I'm going to add one layer. Remember, her neck curves. And then it's not all just one value. And so I'm going to switch my direction and kind of make it fade away. So here I've only done levels like, what is that? That was 2 and 1. I'm sorry guys, it's going to get, let me open my thing. All right, so here's my value scale. Our goal is to use all 7 layers. So from layer 6 to 0. So in this space, I used just layers 2, 1, and it faded out to 0, and that is okay. And then in her hair, I know your models have moved. You might not even have a model, so just rule of thumb, if it curves, it's probably going to have a highlight. Okay, so I'm going to draw some hair here, and I'm going to use a 1, and it's going to fade out to a 0, and then it's going to come back on this side, and it's curving again, which means this would be light. All right, so that's just layer 1. I want more layers because that doesn't look quite realistic. So it faded out to that 0 there. So now I'm going to start a 2, and I'm going to let that layer 2 fade out to layer 1. So now I have a 0 and a 2. Something else with hair is like my favorite. Something else you want to remember with hair is that it's not all going to be one big clunk. Like this whole shape should not all be one piece. So you can kind of see how I'm starting a second clump here, and that would kind of signal that it has a different section of hair. And then maybe I want another one here. Now I'm doing my layer 3, but I'm leaving layer 0 and layer 1 and layer 2 in spots. And I messed up her hair, so I'm going to let it go. And remember too, hair should not have one big outline because your hair is frizzy. Even tamed hair has some kind of loose ends. So it's okay to have a few loose ends. What we don't want are outlines. Outlines are cartoon characters. So you need to make sure that you're not outlining your piece. So I can tell that this is a neck without me outlining it. I can tell this is hair, even though this space right here is empty. These are her, I guess, bangs. I'm going to do the same thing. They would go darker next to her ear. I'm going to fade that out. And then I would continue on the other side. And remember, do not outline it. You're doing a layer 1. And you can separate your lines, fade it into a 0, and then bring it back out. Okay? For the face, you don't need a whole lot, just a few small details. Remember, I said you don't have to draw a lot of the facial features because they're so small. You can just suggest it. So I kind of drew one line, and then I added an eye with a highlight. Okay? Like, don't spend a lot of time on the face. We're going to do that for the next project when we draw one big detailed figure. And then just suggest that there's a nose there. But again, I didn't completely outline. I used a layer 1 and I'm just fading it into 0 because the face is super small. To make sure that it's not a cartoon, you do need a shadow, and you also need to make sure that your eyes fit on your face. Do not draw your eyes large. Another thing to make sure that it's not a cartoon is some of us just have a line here. A human, like a realistic person, which is our goal, has a bottom lip and a top lip. So make sure you have 2 lips, and make sure that your chin is round. So it's going to be an oval shape, but what we don't want is a triangular face. Okay, so it should have round 2 lips, some kind of shadow here, and then your hair also needs highlights and shadows and lines. I bet you I lost my other example that I showed you guys the other day. I bet you I did. I just found it. Okay, so here's an example of what I did the other day. We don't have outlines. We have multiple different values. So I have a 0, I have a 3 here. This is more like a 5. You use layers to change the values, and you need multiple values. I think I got everything. If not, then feel free to ask a question. Let's just focus on the hair and the face today, and then we'll get to close during our next class. Okay?